welcome to Famhealth, a platform where we inspire, inform, and educate you on everything health. In our third episode of the High School Bus series, today we discuss the problem of peer pressure, popularity in social cliques, and the impact of lockdown on our relationships with Tira Katari, Shruti, and Ananya. Thank you for joining us today. I'll begin with my question. What exactly would you think peer pressure is, and where do you think it comes from, and how does it affect us? Why do or why don't we fall under the influence of peer pressure? So we can begin with Thira.
Sure. I feel that peer pressure may have a very abstract definition, but according to me, I feel that when you are forced to do something under the influence of your peers and you really don't want to do it, yet you do it to maintain this personality in front of them. And when you do that, it might have a positive effect or it might have a negative effect. But generally, we come across cases where there are a lot of negativities involved with peer pressure, and it might stem from a series of sources, but I think that yeah, mostly when people fall under the influence of peer pressure, it is negative.
I think, as Thira said, the definition is really abstract. It can imply positive terms as well. But because the word includes pressure, I feel it is when somebody is hesitant to do something, and you're forcing him or her into that. I think it's typically conventionally related to things like drugs, alcohol, and things like that. Answering to your second question, where you said that why actually people fall into this trap, I feel it's maybe because like they want to fit in, they don't want to feel isolated, secluded. They want to be appreciated. They want to come into limelight. That's exactly I think why they get into such things. And who does and who doesn't? I think the one who believes in their own thoughts, their own beliefs. Is likely to get a bit rid of peer pressure because they go their mentality is parallel and they go in a straight thought way. But otherwise I think most of the people are victim to peer pressure.
Thank you, Shruti. Ananya, would you like to add on?
Yeah. So, like both of you said, even I think that peer pressure is basically getting influence of what your peers are doing. And yeah, basically just like fit in and seem like, you're a part of a certain group or like a part of a social circle. And where does it come from and who can fall for it? I think somewhere the other, all of us have fallen for it. And it's not like a specific person or, or someone is like more prone to it. It's just that, like, yeah, Shruti said that, if you believe in yourself, feel like, confident enough, you don't really need to fit in, as everyone says. So that's it.
Thank you. Moving on to the next question, would you be willing to share any experiences where, you personally have felt pressured by someone, you've made decisions you wouldn't have made on your own, or if you feel that you have pressured someone without realizing it or with realizing it, and if you have, pressured someone, what is your outlook or your take on that action now? When you look back on it, what do you feel about those actions of yours? Shruti, would you like to start us off?
Yeah, okay. I'll start this. I think like a high school journey is always incomplete about peer pressure without peer pressure. So I have like faced peer pressure a lot of times. I'll start with an instance like I was really heavy, like in weight. So and all in everybody in my friend circle was keeping slim, and they used to play basketball, and and everybody used to body shame ki you're fat, tum aise dikhte ho, all of that. So unknowingly, that actually developed peer pressure for me. That got me into the sport of basketball because, like, I wanted to fit in. I want like every girl like in my group played. So even I wanted to fit in. I wanted to apparently, get into that definition of being beautiful, being slim, and all of that. So I think that got me into that was one of the pressures I actually faced. I think that was both a negative and a positive peer pressure. I mean, मुझे लेना नहीं चाहिए था वो as a peer pressure, but because I took it, I think I actually reduced weight. But again, that's negative because I did it because other people said things to me. Peer pressure सबसे ज़्यादा तो I think मुझे अभी तक marks में होता है if he or she can score this much, then why am I the one who is scoring less? What is wrong with me? And that always creates pressures. For me it has been very negative. Like मुझे मेरे 2 साल के एग्जाम स्किप करने पड़े थे. लाइक हर सेकंड सेमेस्टर मुझे काफी प्योर प्रेशर हो जाता था, और मैं ड्रिप्स पे मेरे को पैनिक अटैक आता था बिकॉज ऑफ प्योर प्रेशर की मेरे फ्रेंड ने इतना कर लिया और मैं बहुत कम पे रह गई, तो उसकी वजह से मुझे पैनिक अटैक, फिर मुझे स्टमक एक, फिर फीवर, फिर ड्रिप्स, एंड एट द एंड आई कुडंट गिव द एग्जाम. तो वो बहुत नेगेटिव था. मुझे लग रहा था एग्जाम नहीं दूंगी, मार्क्स नहीं आएंगे तो लोग कुछ बोलेंगे नहीं, पर एट द एंड उसने मेरे बोर्ड रिजल्ट्स को भी काफी अफेक्ट किया. एंड आफ्टर ऑल मेरी लर्निंग में भी, और काफी हिंड्रेंस डाला. प्लस it didn't make me learn how to deal with anxiety, panic. Answering to the next question, Ria, that have I created pressure? I wouldn't lie on that. I have created pressure. Even if I've done a single chapter, I would knowingly say that, oh, I'm just completed with the course. मैंने इतना कर लिया. The teacher said this to me. कि उसने बोल दिया कि मेरा बहुत अच्छा आंसर था. I'll definitely score full. Even if I did like a single chapter, I would say that मैंने 5 chapter complete कर लिए, बहुत कम time बचा है. You only have 1 hour left. How would you complete this work? How would you complete this assignment? So most of the times unknowingly I did, but sometimes yes, intentionally also. Like before a few years when we were all in the rat race of scoring better, of creating pressure, I think yes, I have like intentionally created pressure too.
Thank you, Shruti, and thank you for acknowledging that and sharing your experience. Ananya, is there anything you would like to say?
Yeah, so I think Shruti and I like very similar in that manner regarding exams. Like still to the date, I get very competitive with like what everyone's doing, how much everyone's scoring. And I don't think it's just me. I think it's everyone. But a few years back during 10th, even I got so competitive and I got into that spirit of like peer pressure that I actually fell sick during ninth for exams. And looking back at that now, I think that it does get to everyone, but you should not make yourself so just fall into that, or that spirit of competition that it actually affects your health. And to your second question, whether I may have peer pressured someone, I think knowingly I don't think I have, but unknowingly I should be said, like when we're over the phone with our friends that तूने ये किया है क्या, and इतना कम time बचा, like she said, how you do it. So I think unknowingly that if I would have been on the other side of the phone, even I would have felt that I won't be able to complete it, and that it gets stressed. So that.
Thank you, Ananya. Thira?
Yeah. So I'd be very honest. I think I've done both things, both parts of your question. When I recently joined the school in 8th grade, I remember मेरे पे एक ऐसा pressure रहता था कि you have to join the cool kids. You have to make friends with these people. They're the right kids. Turns out not, looking back. But I think the peer pressure I felt mostly was to react in a certain way, was to behave in a certain way. I used to look around. My friends used to treat someone like this, so it meant that even I have to treat that someone like this. And like Shruti and Anya said, marks has always been a race. We were put in this race right from when we joined the education system, and it always, whether it be my boarding school or whether it be now, there's always been this thing that I have to score better than this person, or else my self-esteem, my personality, that will take a hit. Looking on the side where drinking and all of this is involved, I would say yes. हम parties में जाते हैं, सब बोलते हैं एक shot और please ले लो. But it's wrong to fall under that trap, and that can lead you in wrong ways. Yes, I personally have pressured a lot of people myself to do certain things for me, to act in a certain way, to look a certain way, to be and behave with someone in a certain way. And looking back, I feel very sorry for those actions, and I knew that I was going on a wrong path. And I would like to acknowledge that these things might seem temporary, looking smart, looking looking ideally perfect in front of someone, but it does not really matter at the end of the day. You're just hurting yourself and your mental health.
Thank you, Thira. Which brings me to my next question. Of course, we face peer pressure from the people around us. But would you say that, okay, how all of us spend so much time on Instagram and Snapchat and Twitter and all these social media sites where, we're seeing particular lifestyles, we're seeing how people look, how they act, what colleges they're getting into. Do you think social media creates a sense of peer pressure within us? Somebody who doesn't even know us, but they still have that impact over our actions. And I think apart from social media, would you say there are any other sources you've sort of felt this peer pressure from, or felt that pressure from? So, Ananya, would you like to start?
Yeah, I think this is something that I relate the most to because I think that often, like, for me, at least I'll spend 5 hours, 6 hours mindlessly scrolling on Instagram and looking at people who I don't know, neither do they know that I exist. And still, I feel that, there's a sense of comparison because either they're the same age, in the same school, we're part of the same circle, or the way that they look, the way that they dress. And it got so toxic for me. Like, recently I was back on Instagram 2 days back. Other than that, since 2 weeks, I completely uninstalled the app because it put me in such a bad mental space. Because since a few years, I've put on a lot of weight, right? And that made me really conscious about the way I look, which is so bad because you should never do that to yourself because everyone's different and everyone comes from a different background, and you just don't see that because you're on a screen and you're looking at a person's life through that screen, and neither do you know what they're doing in the rest 23 hours of their life, right? So just looking at that one picture could make me feel that way. It just became really toxic. And I think, yeah, I think everyone falls prey to that. I don't know, except social media, there's some sort of peer pressure comparison that I've faced in my life. Yeah, so Shruti and Thera, go ahead.
Shruti?
Yeah, I think I perfectly agree to like what Ananya said, that I think social media is amongst the most impactful and influential things like which causes peer pressure for me. For example, like I have a dream college to go on to. So whoever went to that dream college or whoever in my grade is looking forward to that dream college, I'll just go to the person's profile, I'll keep stalking them, what new they are doing. Even though that won't make me do the same thing they're doing, but still I'll look at them, I'll just, I mean, it kinds of like motivates me, which is really wrong. Because but yeah, I think social media is amongst the biggest things, which causes peer pressure for me, because like it actually brings the whole world onto, yeah, onto your plate. So yeah, apart from that, I don't think like anything except your social circle, your school, people you're with, and social media, because it covers everything. There is anything that causes peer pressure as such.
Thank you, Shruti. Thira?
Right. So carry forwarding what Ananya said about body issues, I'm personally a person who is considered to be on the heavier side of what social media considers weight and body to look like. And I have gone through many instances where people have called me out for being fat. And that has made me go on social media and look at how a person should look like the ideal definition of perfect, and change into that. But although I have gone through all of that, I just feel that it's not worth it. क्योंकि at the end of the day मेरे को हमेशा ही लगता था कि मेरी self worth कम है, मैं ये नहीं कर पाऊंगी. It brings all kind of demotivation and negativity around you, and that really isn't worth it. Like Shruti and Ananya both said, scrolling through reels, you see so many trends where everyone's going out, where everyone's partying. You feel like कि मैं क्यों घर में बंद हूँ, even I need to go see my friends, I need to meet them, I need to wear these clothes, I need to catch up with the latest trends. And all of that, just keeping up with the pace of the world, really affects you mentally, I feel. And I feel like another platform that has really affected me has to be Netflix and all of these streaming platforms. We see these teenage shows जहाँ पर एक बहुत अनरियलिस्टिक और एक बहुत स्केची रिप्रेजेंटेशन दिखाते हैं एक टीनेजर का, being involved in so many things, in parties and in going and looking a certain way. And we when we see that, we want to reflect that onto our lives, we want to act the way they do, and we term that as cool. which really I think affects how we behave and how we act today.
I think, all of this is so relatable because I think teenagers all over the globe, whoever's on social media faces these problems. And what Thira said about Netflix creating these, you know, typical stereotypes of how a teenager is supposed to behave and look, like, I think these are big concerns that, we're all struggling with, which again, leads to my next question. We've all heard this phrase, and I think Thira mentioned it a little while ago, trying to fit in. We have this need, हमें होता है कि एक सोशल ग्रुप चाहिए होता है, दोस्त चाहिए होते हैं, इस टाइप के दोस्त चाहिए होते हैं, इतने दोस्त चाहिए होते हैं. And to find that sense of um attachment to something, we sort of stray away from what's good for us, and we fall under those negative influences just because we want to fit in. So what is your take on this entire mentality? To some extent, do you think it's a good way to approach certain social situations? Is it impactful? What is your idea on this? I think we can start off with Shruti.
Yes, okay. So I think the term fit in like holds a lot of different meanings, like, to different people. To some people, like, fit in might mean that you have to make the other people comfortable when you enter the group. So other people, it may mean that, you have to get belonged, you have to be liked by others. And some people don't maybe consider fitting in anything. So I feel मेरे साथ काफी हुआ है ये, like at least entering into adolescence and the age of 16, 17, where people start drinking. So for me, like fitting in has particularly related to that ki so most of the people I hang out with, like most of my friends, all of them drink. And at parties, because everybody was drinking around me, I felt a bit secluded, that and everybody would make fun ki tu nahi peeti, tu enjoy bhi kya kar rahi hogi party, what did you even do, कि तुमने किया ही क्या होगा पार्टी में, तुम्हारा मजा ही क्या था, and all of those things you tend to hear. And then you anyways start feeling secluded, so you tend up getting into the wrong things because you want to fit in, because um, yeah, you want to be liked by everybody, you want people to call you social, socially active, interactive, and all of that. So yeah, I mean, because like I feel also it is like every family has their own values, right? And because there are so many people coming from such diverse backgrounds and cultures, this fitting in concept actually ruins the cultures and things, because if everybody just tends to like fit in, they just lose their own values and things they are rooted to. Yeah, so that's what I think. Like it is bad, like fitting in is genuinely bad because it ruins your mental health, it makes you feel competitive, it makes you feel wrong, it makes you feel like bad about yourself. So I think that's all I have to say.
Those are very good points. How we lose our identity trying to fit in. Ananya, is there anything you would like to say?
Yeah, basically what Shruti said, like I definitely think that in most of the cases, like in high school, I think fitting in is actually negative and it's bad, because I think in the essence of fitting in, you actually lose what you were as a person in the first place.
Thira?
Right. So I think that first of all, humans are very social creatures, and they need this kind of interaction to thrive. They need this interaction to feel belonged. But trying to fit in can have two ways to look at it. I feel there can be a positive way. You might just are branching out and you find the group of people you never thought you would, and you stick to them, and your ideas match, and that is truly an amazing feeling. But कभी कभार ये भी होता है, like Shruti and Anya said, you lose your identity. You try to be someone who you aren't. Coming on to the topic of parties again, you see people around you rolling up weed, doing hookah. Do you want to do that? You might want to fit in. But is that wrong? Yes. If you feel that in no way are you interested and you're just doing this to uphold a very superficial picture of yourself, then maybe it is wrong. And I think at times like these, one should like get some insight into who they are from their real friends and talk to them about how they're feeling about this and explain to them ki suno mera meko bilkul bhi man nahi hai, and explain them very nicely. this is not who I am, and don't force me. I think it's very important for us to stand up in these situations.
I think I would like to, add on to that because that is in a lot of ways, for a person like me, I didn't watch Netflix. Like I couldn't, I had to force myself because all my friends used to be like, they used to discuss Netflix shows, Netflix movies and everything. And to get into the conversation, because all they used to either talk about was partying or Netflix, right? So it was barely about school. And if it was about school, it was competitive, so you were lost and you had to fit in, to be social again. So I had to force myself. I still do force myself to like watch Netflix shows because I'm not a person who can watch shows, but I still do force myself because I need topics, to talk to. Secondly, I think it is also like, on social media whenever you are traveling to a place. So if I'll talk, travel to anywhere nearby, maybe like a very religious place, which I love, but I cannot put it on social media, obviously, because I will think people will judge me. I mean, I'm not in London, so people might be like, oh, she doesn't have enough things. I mean, a lot of people like judge you on the basis of that because I heard like, one of the friends speaking, like, it's the first international trip, not to me, like for other people. Like, oh, she just went to a first international trip. So I feel that people just go for like trips to put it on social media, which is again wrong because then that peer pressure of making themselves look really big, really good. So I feel that in those ways also like peer pressure has been big, where you try to show yourselves on Instagram and social media of who you're not and what you don't believe in.
Thank you, guys. My next question would be that, it's a little different than what we're discussing, but it's very relevant. Um, so obviously, the last 15, 16 months now, sub COVID mein lockdown, sab nikal chuka hai. And, obviously there's a lot of physical distance between, all of us. And, जितना मिलते थे पहले स्कूल में हर रोज मिलना होता था, अब नहीं होता है. And I think, and I personally go through this, is that, I feel like it's strained my relationships with everyone. Maybe I'm not talking to you guys as much, or I'm making some other friends who I never spoke to before. So, what would you say, how has lockdown really affected your relationships? And how have you tried to keep up with those changes? Like, have you made those efforts to, keep in touch, or have you just, isolated yourself, which is completely fine. But how have you dealt with this sudden change that has, come about?
I just feel that whenever we are on a call with each other, like during the lockdown, we had like very limited things to talk about, like tu kya kar rahi hai, tune kya kiya, and what would a person even do sitting at home in the lockdown and in the initial stages, like attending school, attending tuitions, and that's it. You couldn't go out to play or like interact with your friends or do anything. So I think that is definitely distance all of us. But right now, like the things are like opening up, and then we have all of these apps like House Party and stuff. So it's easy to like catch on with everybody, and we can play games, or we can just have a game night and spend time with our friends. But again, it's not the way it used to be in school, because we used to meet every day. We used to hang out for lunches and brunches, and have the sports period. So that's like a completely different bond that we are missing since this 1.5 years. So yeah, Shruti and Sarah, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Ananya. I'd just like to add like another small part to this question. Because हम सब अभी 12th में हैं और 3-4 महीने में college applications आने वाली हैं. And most of us are applying to the same universities. There's a lot of competition between each other as well. Like, we've been talking about. Do you think that this competition has increased because of the already existing strains on the relationships? Everything's already so delicate. Uski upar se, all this pressure of having the perfect resume or having all those activities and having those grades. Do you think that's also affected your relationships with each other? Thera?
Yeah, 100%. I'm a living, breathing example of it. Like I always feel attacked or threatened whenever I listen to my friends who are applying to the same colleges, doing something new, and that has affected me. But I would say that definitely lockdown has affected me in two ways. It did strain my relationships because I was at home, I was cocooned, I was around my family. So, interactions felt like they were continuous. There was no interruption like that. And when there was this big break in the middle where we could go out, you go out, you talk again, you patch up, and then you feel that okay, everything's fine. But then right after that, you go into another lockdown, and then you feel the second blow. So I think the second blow affected me much more, because like everything was built up and then it broke up again. So that really affected me, that hurt me. And I used to contemplate a lot, these are the last years of high school and I'm wasting it over contemplating so much about friendships that I thought were for life, and bondings that I thought could never be destroyed by anything, right? So that did affect me. But on the other hand, I would say that lockdown got me closer to a lot of other people that I didn't get a chance to talk to as much, doing initiatives together, participating in different competitions together, having those late night house party talks with them. So yes, it opened me to a whole new branch of people who I thought I would never talk to that much. And it was awesome too. So I think it affected me in two different ways.
Thank you, Tira. Shruti?
To that. Okay, so I always had that myth in mind, ki jo log, like there are always two sets of people that, whenever like your true friends, you're always in touch with them like 24/7, like you have to talk to them every day. And then, comes party friends, which you only can talk to when you're chilling or partying. So I think that's a myth that again, two friends need to talk to like, each other every day. So for me, like in the lockdown, genuinely I stopped, like not stopped but reduced talking to a lot of people, so I blame that, oh, they're not my true friends and all of that. But I think, yeah, again, because I was cocooned at my home. So yeah, basically, I just feel that there is nothing like, people are still the same. Everything is going, for everybody in a very different manner. I think, yeah, a lot of my friendships have strained because like there were friends who used to just meet and who you could just talk face to face, and you just relieve of everything on face, but again you're not talking to them and you just don't feel comfortable talking about those things over call or over text. The relationships were strained. But again, like you just started talking to new people who you thought you'll never talk to, who you thought you'll never close to, you unexpectedly got really close. So I think that was again really good. I would like to add the peer pressure perspective to this. I think lockdown and being at home made me feel like really healthy mentally in terms of peer pressure. Because, like, I bet if I was in school, I would have been like, oh, these guys are doing this. How can they do that? He just got a call from the principal that he's invited to this thing. He just won this. The principal has just come to the room to acknowledge his or her presence, or so those things would have really affected me, because being a very competitive person, I get really sensitive on such things. Ki isko kyu bola when I have the same potential? Why not me? I always have that in mind. So again, I don't have that. And agar online bhi bolte to aisa lagta hai kuch zyada farak nahi pad raha, like we don't care. Also because like you don't really get to know what the other person is doing. For example, a person is applying to the same college, so I won't really get to know ki uski kya kya activities hai. So I wouldn't get into that competition and try to do the same thing he or she is doing. I think this has been quite beneficial because all the initiatives I've come up with, अगर मैं वही सोचते रह जाती कि सामने वाला क्या कर रहा है, सो आई थिंक वो इनिशिएटिव्स हो नहीं पाते, बिकॉज मेरे पास हमेशा वो मेंटल ब्लॉकेज रहता कि मुझे इसी साइड जाना और मैं खुद का ये नहीं कर सकती. सो आई थिंक फॉर मी, in terms of peer pressure, lockdown has been great, like at least being at home, because I didn't think about people. Even if I did, they were just my close friends who I spoke to everything about, who didn't hesitate telling me. So which actually moved me into better things, which actually let me do better extracurriculars or academics. So yeah, I think on the side of peer pressure, lockdown was actually good for me.
Thank you. So one of my last questions for today is, this term that we listen to a lot, FOMO, fear of missing out. This is something that all of us are so accustomed to. Like, हमेशा होता है कि मेरे ग्रुप में से, सब लोग बाहर जा रहे हैं पर मेरे को अलाउ नहीं हुआ, या मेरे को कोविड हो रखा है तो मैं बाहर नहीं जा सकती. And then, all these feelings come up, and this sort of resentment towards the other person, कि how can they go and how can they party without me? or how can they meet up without me? So, and I think that's been amplified because of lockdown as well. Like, pehle, it would you would go to school and it would compensate for, skipping that one outing. But अब वैसे ही इतने limited chances होते हैं मिलने के, उसके ऊपर से, sometimes you can't make it. So how exactly have you been, how do you cope with this entire feeling? What is your approach to it? Ananya?
Yeah, like you said, I think FOMO happens to everybody. And abhi, like specifically, agar, like 4 out of 5 people in my group are going out and I am not able to go out, for example, there's no drive or I'm not well, then I feel like, abhi to itte time baad everyone's meeting and isme also I can't go. So there's a sense of self-pity as well, I've missed out and, all of them might be discussing and having fun and everything, which is like, yeah, basically everyone, I think everyone's going through that right now. And then I start feeling bad कि एक ही तो chance था जाने का and मैं नहीं जा पाई, and already like I'm locked up at home, there's no one to talk to, and the people who I talk to are going out without me. So matlab, obviously not intentionally, but yeah, again it just makes you feel bad as a person. But again, you need to understand that not everyone has the same circumstances, and obviously they are your friends, you will meet them someday and you will have those discussions all over again. So I think it's important to self actualize on that point, and otherwise I think yeah, it's okay.
Thank you, Ananya. Thera?
Yeah. I think definitely, like, just recently, all of my friends went to a party, but like I wasn't allowed to go because I had my UK application due in a few months and I had to really work on it and I didn't find the time. So in those cases, yes, I feel prioritizing is super important. When there are such important benchmarks in your life that you need to get to, it is important कि पहले आप अपने बारे में सोचो and then you think about all of these other things. But this is a feeling that you cannot really escape. It does happen. And next morning, when you open social media and you see billions of stories with pictures of that party, you feel this kind of blow कि यार जाना चाहिए था, क्यों मिस किया, एक ही बार तो चांस होता है. And that's pretty normal to feel that. But holding on to that feeling is what gets you in the wrong. Usko zyada der tak, if you keep thinking about it, it's going to affect your own mental state. So it's better if you just call up one of your friends, get all the gossip that you need to, feel as if you were a part of the party and move on. And blow past it. I mean, there are going to be ample of chances where you will meet those friends and you will talk to them again. But at this moment, you should keep reminding yourself कि जो भी मैंने decision लिया, it was for my own good, and I did use my time in a good way. And this is how life goes on. Like every time there's going to be that one important milestone, and you will be in a dilemma whether to choose friends or yourself. And this is going to be a constant choosing and picking thing going on. So it's better if we learn now and we blow past this feeling and we learn how to cope with it through these experiences.
That's great. Which just leads me to my last and final question is that, we've discussed so many topics. Aaj, peer pressure ki baat hui hai, partying and, COVID strain on relationships. What advice would you sort of give, if somebody comes up to you and says, okay, I'm struggling with these things, what do I do? What would you tell them? Like, how have you coped? What have you learned? And what would you tell them? Because like एक होता है कि age के साथ maturity आती है. जो हम लोग 8th grade में थे, I think we're all a lot smarter, in 12th grade, because those experiences also shape you. But what exactly would you tell another person, who's struggling with these issues? Ananya?
Yeah, I think the main thing you need to learn is to say no. And you should understand from the place that you're coming from. Like if you're not comfortable in doing anything, you should straight up say no. And I know for a fact that it's not very easy to just walk up to someone and say no, because again, you're trying to fit in, right? But again, theek hai. And yeah, I think definitely, like you said, all of these experiences have shaped us. And I think yeah, that's about it. Was there a second part to your question that I didn't answer?
No, I think you've pretty much summed that up. Thank you. Shruti?
Yeah, I think as Ananya said, that it's always important to, pay attention to how you feel, So if you're not feeling right in that situation, however difficult it may be, you have to say a no, because at the end of the day, your mental health is at stake, right? Also, if I think if you plan ahead, think about how you respond in such situations, what you'll say, what you can do, and all of that, it will be like you will be able to handle the pressure very well. Also, I think it is quite tough to say that because but again, if like you should choose the people who you're comfortable with. So like, maybe you should have friends with the similar values and beliefs. I mean, again, you don't get to know a value and belief of a person in a day. You do it over time. You change people. Some people you thought were like you may not have turned out like you. So even that is a whole of a mental turmoil. But I feel that choosing the right people is very important. Like, even if all my friends drink, none of them force me into drinking, right? So that doesn't affect my mental health, and it just keeps me well. I mean, I'm partying, I'm not drinking, it keeps me fine because they're not forcing me into that. They're not making me feel bad about myself that I'm not drinking or I'm not doing drugs, or I'm not smoking. So yeah, I feel that if you plan effectively, if you know what you have to do, if you listen to what your heart is saying, if your heart is saying go ahead with it, so again, go ahead with it because it's obviously going to make you feel happier, good. But if you don't want to do it, and if you're just doing it because others are doing it and you want to feel fit in, just don't. And again, have friends who can actually help you go through this, than having people who you think have to be in the social terms and to be called cool. So yeah, I think that's it. Tira, you can take over.
Right. First off, I would just like to say that it takes a lot of courage to open about even the smallest things that you're feeling. And it is very, because it has happened to me that whenever I went to someone regarding my concerns when I was younger, they labeled it as invalid, or something that will not matter in 5 years and stuff like that. I mean, although that advice is important, I would say this is an experience and all of us go through it, and no pain is big or small. And I think the biggest takeaway that you can take is sharing. And when you share these things, you might just get the answer to all of your problems. And like Ananya and Shruti said, that it's important to say no. It is important to stand up for yourself. And even though you are taking risks, be sure of the people who are around you, be sure of your circumstances, and don't let the vulnerability of the situation get to your head. Just be who you are. I know it is tough to find your identity, to finally understand who you are at such a young age. But if your head says no, and even if your heart says yes, I would say listen to your head, because that always makes the right decisions for you. And yeah, I guess that's it.
I think with that, we come to the end of the third episode of the High School Bus series. Thank you so much, Ananya, Shruti, and Thira, for joining us today and talking about your experiences and your outtake on the topic of peer pressure. Have a good day and hope to see you guys soon.
हेल्थ फिटनेस और पोषण पर पाए बेस्ट डॉक्टर्स की राय सिर्फ famhealth.in पर, और हमारी यूट्यूब पेज माय फैम हेल्थ पर सब्सक्राइब करना ना भूलें।